August 1914. The Great War. They said it would all be over by Christmas. But a year passed, and the lanes of England still echoed to the tramp of marching feet. With each month, still more of England's manhood was drawn to the battlefields of France. Life at home would be difficult without them, and those left behind needed strength and courage. For the young, it was a time of great adventure, the adventure of filling their father's place in a nation stripped of men. One such adventurer was Tom Grattan, and this is his story.
I wouldn't say Tom Grattan was dissatisfied at Kirby's farm. He was too busy for that, and there were too many new things for him to learn. But he did sometimes wonder whether he was doing a real man's job, feeding pigs and mucking out stables. There's not much glory in it. And between you and me, there was a corner of Tom's heart that ached for a slice of glory. So he'll understand the story I'm going to tell you. It was the late spring of 1915. Work on farm started at dawn and ended at sunset, and one day was very much like the rest. Then suddenly, one morning, out of the blue, came an offer of help.
Oh, dear, I'm not getting any younger. One for you, all for Mrs. Kirby, and none for young Grattan. Good news, is it?
Yes. Morning, Patty. Come on. Tom! Tom!
Yes? What's the matter?
Tom! Look at this. It's from Robert. I know you need all the help you can get on the farm. A friend of mine in the Rifle Brigade, a Lieutenant Alan Shaw, is on leave in England getting over a wound, and he wants to do something useful till they send him out again. I asked him if he'd like to work on the farm, and he agreed. I'm going to tell Mum.
The prospect of help during the endless hours of work about the farm delighted Julie. To Tom, the bustle of preparation for their visitor meant more. A soldier home from the trenches.
You won't want flowers.
Why not? You probably appreciate them.
I shall be glad when all this fuss is over and the young chap's arrived.
Nothing wrong with your hair, Julie. These clothes want airing.
When the trap finally clattered round the bend, Tom and Julie could hardly believe their eyes. After all those preparations, he was coming at last. Lieutenant Shaw was here.
He's here.
Here he is, Mrs. Kirby.
Hello, Lieutenant Shaw. Hi.
Lieutenant Shaw never forgot his first impression of Kirby's farm. Smell of new-baked bread. Mrs. Kirby in a clean white apron. The warmth of a real Yorkshire welcome. And, of course, Tom and Julie, who wanted above all to be friends with him.
Were you the first over the top?
Well, I really haven't time to look.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
what happened to your,
My leg?
yeah.
Well, there was a bang, and that's all I know about it.
Where was that?
Neuve-Chapelle.
Neuve-Chapelle? It mentions that in the War Illustrated. Here. Neuve-Chapelle added another splendid page to the Empire's story. The decisive British victory proved that the Germans were by no means unbeatable.
You don't want to believe all that stuff.
Anyway, it said in last month's that the war would be over by Christmas.
I'd like to meet the man who wrote that.
Can I show you around, Mr. Shaw?
Oh, thanks.
I collect war pictures.
Do you?
There's a cut them out of magazines. And pictures don't lie, do they?
I suppose not.
I wish I was 18.
Why?
I joined the army.
Listen, Tom, when the day comes to fight, we'd expect it to be nasty. That way you won't be disappointed, eh? And on a good farm, we'll close the gates after them.
Suddenly, for the first time since he came to the Kirby farm, Tom was reminded that he was merely a boy. The lieutenant seemed so sure of himself, so able to shoulder lightly the responsibilities Tom had found so demanding.
What's the trouble? Oh, bolt went in wheel. I put a new one in and now I can't get wheel back.
Right, we'll come out of there to begin with.
Hey, Tom, lad, I bet you something to give us a bit more leverage. Hold it.
So that was it. They expected him to fetch and carry like an errand boy. Somehow it seemed they didn't want him out there anymore. Lieutenant Shaw had taken his place, leaving him nothing important to do. They could manage quite well without him.
So. Got it? Right. Oh, that's it.
With a sinking heart, Tom watched the new man of the house who had taken his place, Lieutenant Shaw. Nobody took Tom seriously anymore. To the menfolk, he was just a dreamy boy who cut out pictures from the war magazines and lived the war through his father's letters.
Dear Tom, summer's here, and with its coming, things are a bit quieter. Thank God, for what we've been through has been hell itself. I'm not complaining, mind you, for here are the staunchest comrades a man could have. Brave and true. This is a man's job we've got to do, and I, for one, would ask to be nowhere else.
Come in.
I've cleaned your boots.
Thanks.
And Mum says, are you nearly ready?
Yes, 1 minute.
Oh, Mum, he's got his best uniform on.
Well, what do you expect? It's Sunday. Be a love, Tom. Fetch Mr. Shaw's horse round. We're late already.
I wish I had somebody to clean my boots. Hello, horse. It's Tom. Don't be scared. That's it.
It won't bite.
squeeze in with us or ask Mr. Shaw?
I'll walk.
All right, then we'll see you at church.
All right.
Come on.
With its coming, things are a bit quieter. Thank God, for what we've been through has been hell itself. I'm not complaining, mind you, for here are the staunchest comrades a man could have. This is a man's job we've got to do, and I, for one, would ask to be nowhere else.
And so it was, on that Sunday morning, Tom Grattan made his big decision. He would take his life in his hands and go where he was really needed. He would leave the farm and join the army.
I'm surprised at Tom. He's never missed church before.
Oh, I shouldn't worry, Mrs. Kirby. Old boy's played truant now and then.
Tom? He's not in his room. Look, he's taking his money with him. Do you think he's run away? Don't sit down.
Come on, move along there.
Next! Now, what can I do for you, son?
I want to join the army.
Do you? How old are you, then?
18.
Oh, yes. Does your mother know you're here?
I haven't got a mother.
Where do you live, then?
Kirby's farm.
Well, son, you'll be a lot more use to His Majesty feeding pigs than fighting Germans. Thanks all the same. Next. How old are you, son?
18 and a half.
18 and a half.
Yes, sir.
Oh. Well, you better take a walk round the block then, hadn't you? Come back when you're 19. Don't take all day about it.
Oh, right.
Now, sonny, you come back in a couple of years. If we ain't won the war by then, I'll see what I can do for you. Next.
Eppingstall.
What's your first name, Eppingstall?
Arthur.
I see. Arthur Eppingstall.
Epping H-E. No.
H-E. I see.
Hey! I'm 19.
So that was that. The army didn't want him either. There was no chance now of getting over to France and facing the enemy at his father's side. Poor Tom. He was too proud to go home and too downhearted to think what else he might do. So he just kept on walking.
Don't you worry, Mrs. Kirby. We'll soon find him.
Yeah, can't have gone far. Come.
I don't know what I'd do if anything happened to him.
Don't worry, Mum. Tom will be all right. Come on.
At the end of that long day, it started to rain, and the same soft Yorkshire countryside, where Tom had begun to feel so at home, now seemed cold and uninviting. In spite of himself, Tom was a bit afraid, just as he had been on that first day when he drove through the wild dales, still fresh from his home in London. The drizzle turned into rain. Even the weather was against him.
Made Tom do a thing like that?
I've been wondering about that as well. You know, I think it might have had something to do with me.
Whatever do you mean?
Well, you see, Mrs. Kirby, I'm trying to forget about the war. And every time Tom mentions it, then I shut him up. I should have told him the truth. How ugly and futile war really is. And on a good farm, they close the gates after them.
Mr. Shaw! Have you got a minute?
Don't worry, Tom. They won't bite. Won't bite.
Join the army.
How old are you, son?
18.
You come back in a couple of years. If we ain't won the war by then, I'll see what I can do for you.
Tom's shelter that night was damp and draughty, but he didn't really know which was worse, the strange dreams which tormented him when he slept, or the chill which ate into his bones when he didn't.
Tom never found it easy to think on an empty stomach, but that morning he had to. He couldn't go back to the farm, that's for certain. He thought of trying another recruiting office, but one recruiting sergeant would be very like another. He was full of his own troubles, till, quite by chance, he came face to face with somebody else's.
I don't even know what they call you.
Tom Grattan.
Tom. That's my last name. Kind heart. Help anybody. Just like you. But he would join up. I didn't say anything because, well, when a lad makes up his mind to do something, there's nothing you can do about it. Still, it's hard on your own. You're not looking for work, are you, Tom?
No, they need me at home, thanks.
No. Well, Tom Grattan, you can tell them from me. They're very lucky to have a fine, strong lad like you to look after them.
And so back to the farm he went. Back home. He had said it himself. It was home. What had driven him away was only a skirmish in his war. And like his father, Tom wasn't really one to run away, because in his own way, Tom was a hero too.
You'll never finish that before dark.
No, knowing me, I probably shan't. Don't worry, Tom. You'll be 18 before you know where you are.